Hello and welcome to Drive-In Double Feature. I'm Ryan.
I'm Nathan.
And this is the podcast where we talk about 2 movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday. But before we get into that, we have a Patreon over at patreon.com/drive-in-double-feature-podcast. Just a fun little place where you could support us, where Nathan and I have some off-the-cuff conversations, games, maybe a guest or two, who knows. Just something we give a little extra to our Patreons over there. Doesn't affect any regular content, just helps us support the show. Check it out sometime. But today we're going to be talking about 1979's When a Stranger Calls, directed by Fred Walton. And I think for me, this movie threw me a huge curveball. I was not expecting a manhunt movie.
I was not either. I thought it was going to be a home invasion thriller. And it's only a home invasion thriller in the beginning and the end.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, everything else is all manhunt. I was really surprised by this movie, actually.
Yeah.
Just like you. And that's one of those things, I guess, movies like this that are talked up or, are such a big deal can still have something hidden because maybe people just remember a scene or a moment. That's what sticks in their head, not the whole thing.
Well, I'm getting a little ahead, but what did you think overall of it?
Okay. I thought it was okay. I actually I didn't like it for the most part. I didn't care for it either. Good. I'm glad that we agree. I thought that was going to be a controversial opinion because this movie's well liked. But I mean,
it's well liked enough to have a remake.
Yeah, exactly. And no wonder people don't like the remake because it's based off of this movie. That might have been mean to say.
Well, no, what I read is like the remake is actually, it is a home invasion movie. It's set entirely in the house.
Gotcha. Yeah. See, that's the thing. That's the best part of this movie. The first 20 minutes of this movie, I think, are great.
It's great. Honestly, if this was a short film, it would be perfect. But
yeah.
And my reading is that's what it was originally. It was
really
it was pitched as a short film, or that was like, it started out as the idea of it being a short film. And then we go into, like, that's how the movie was supposed to end. Like, she was going to go up the stairs and find out that her children were dead. But yeah, it's that's how it was originally. And then it was just like, it got sold as a feature, and then they had to expand on that. And it really does feel like 2 complete different things going on. And I just I thought the manhunt stuff was pretty boring. I mean, not really boring, I guess, but I didn't like it really. But
yeah, it wasn't very good. It definitely felt like learning that seems definitely, it just feels like 2 things put together that don't really need to be together. And I'm going to kind of attribute that to being this is kind of early slasher cinema kind of deal. So maybe they just hadn't quite, they were like, oh yeah, well, we have to have the cop going after them. There has to be that element. It can't just be a woman just being haunted by this. Also, it comes from a short campfire tale. That's kind of what this is the short story or a tale you tell around to scare people. Like, the home invader was well, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, I was going to say the same thing. I was wondering, because I think everybody's heard that ghost story or whatever, where it's like the call's coming from inside the house or whatever. And because they actually say that line, like, we trace the call, it's coming from inside the house.
Yeah. And that's like one of the most famous lines from like horror movies. Like, that's I forgot that was from this movie. And when I heard it, it was a great moment. It's a great reveal. It's done so well.
Yeah. And I think, so, I mean, this movie is after Black Christmas, and Black Christmas, they are also being kind of terrorized by a faceless assailant that's been kind of harassing them on the phone too. So I was wondering, like, maybe they're just trying to get away from that sort of thing or whatever. But to me, I really, it's the killer when it's like this unseen killer. You don't really know much about him. And
Mhm.
I think that's kind of where I didn't like it, is when they actually, like, the killer becomes the star of the movie after
Yeah,
this.
which is a really weird way to put it, because that's where the suspense is. That's where it's really gripping, because Carol Kane is a babysitter taking care of two kids. They're sleeping upstairs. She keeps getting calls the whole time from a faceless
And
person. Oh, go ahead.
another Adams Family actor too this week.
Yes, yeah, very. What a weird connection. I mean, Carol Kane. I forgot who she was. I saw her and I knew who she was, but I was like, "What is she in?" She's in so many things. Just one of those
Great,
actresses.
yeah, super great comedian actress.
Yeah, yeah, and I think she's great in this. She plays scared very well, and every time she picks up the phone, she gets a little more and more scared, and the cops don't want to help her because, like,
Cops do nothing for this poor girl. Like, she
yeah,
calls them and they're like, she says, "Hey, this guy's harassing me. I don't know where he is." And they're like, it's probably nothing. Just, I wouldn't worry about it. He'll probably get bored eventually. Like, I'm like, oh my God. Like,
yeah. They're like, okay, so this guy keeps calling you, and he's not using any lewd language. No, but he's still calling me. Is he? Is he there? No, it's like, well, then you have nothing to worry about, man.
yeah, he'll stop eventually. He's like, try getting a whistle and blowing the whistle into the phone.
Yeah, and that's fun. I think that's a fun element. And then eventually she does convince them to trace the call, and that's where the line comes from, like, get out of the house now, he's in the house. um but this
And I was going to say too, that 20 minutes that was Wes Craven paying homage to that scene in the Scream movie.
yeah, it's actually, and then was done over and over again in every Scream sequel.
Well, I was going to say, now everybody thinks that scene came from Scream, and they're like, "Oh, we're paying homage to Scream," when it was Scream paying homage to another movie.
Yeah, exactly. There's really great lines from this person, like, where she's like, why do you want to do this? And she's just like, I want to see your blood. And just stuff like that, very menacing. um and yeah, I guess this dude kills the two kids upstairs. You don't see it or anything, but I think that's actually kind of perfect. I think that makes it just a little more scary.
Yeah, I that I was they you don't see any of, like, the real bloody scenes or anything like that. And I don't I thought was weird though was they do a time shift. It's supposed to be 7 years later, I
Hmm.
believe. And they don't say that it's been 7 years later. Like, it just goes, like, they cut from one scene to the next, and then I guess it, like, that time had passed by. Like, they don't say, like, 7 years later or whatever as a
No.
title card. They're like, "It's 7 years, yeah."
Yeah, you learn that from dialogue, and then it just, like, goes downhill from there. It's kind of about, it's a dual plot line. Well, even, like, it's got three plot lines. Carol Kane's almost forgotten about at this point. The cops chasing after him, and then we get to see the perspective of the killer after he breaks from a mental institution.
Which,
um
the mental institution, to the doctor there, she's like, "Oh, well, he's had immense therapy with us. He shouldn't be any real threat to anything." And I'm like, he
yeah,
escaped from the the
yeah,
facility. Like, he's definitely a threat. He murdered children.
yeah. And she was like, so, like just didn't care. He was like, okay, well, could you tell me, like, just some information about him? And she's like, it's in the files. Okay, I'm not going to tell you anything. It's in the
Well,
files.
yeah. She kept saying it's in the files. And this guy, who's a he was working for the police, and now he's a private investigator.
Mhm.
And he says, "I'm not gonna read your files." Like, I'm like, what?
Yeah, I don't
Just,
understand. You're a private investigator.
like, that's your job, is to research.
Yeah, I don't know. And then we get stuff with the killer, and it's really, uh I don't know what they're going for with these scenes. He goes to a bar, and, like, he's a creep to one of the women there.
he's a creep, but it's like they're trying to make him a sympathetic character
Yeah,
almost.
but yeah, I think so, but it just doesn't work because I mean he gets the crap beat out of him and everything, but he follows her home and like invades her home. He doesn't do anything, but he's kind of a creep to her, and it's not particularly great to watch either. I don't know how to
No.
explain it. It's just
Well,
not
he
intriguing.
goes he goes to the bar and he's a total creep where he tries to hit on this one woman and she makes it clear like leave me alone, like does not giving him any leeway or like trying to flirt back with him or anything. She's pretty like hard line, like get away from me, I don't want to even talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy, there's another bar patron there who just beats the crap out of him because he would not leave him alone. And like the guy was like, even like, bud, you need to leave. Like you're bothering this lady.
Mm-hmm.
And the serial killer's just like spits in his face, like just
Yeah.
like he's the one annoyed about all of this. And the guy gets the crap beat out of him. And then he follows this woman home. And then she sees him there and he's like, oh, I'm gonna apologize. And she's like, oh well, I should be the one to apologize.
Not really.
And I'm like, no, you did nothing wrong. And then he just lets himself into her apartment and he will not leave. Like she's like, you need to leave. Like who said you could come in here? And he's like, well, when can I see you again? And she's like, I don't know, like just leave, get out of here. And he finally does leave, like after a lot of prodding.
Yeah, it takes a long time for him to leave it. She's like, oh, maybe I'll meet with you tomorrow. Maybe we can do coffee tomorrow. And that's kind of like, okay, then I will see you again. And I think in his eyes, of course, he thinks this is very romantic or something like, oh, wow, some crazy event happened. But no.
Well, is it romance or is he? I mean, I'm assuming he's going to kill her if he had the opportunity. But
yeah. But I mean, he's kind of crazy too. I'm sure he wants to kill her as well. And yeah, I mean, then it's kind of just this whole plot line of the cop knocking on her door and like.
Yeah, well, like that's the other thing too. Yeah, the cop is not likable either.
No,
and he like this woman. She has no idea who this cop is. She doesn't know that she was just hanging out with a murderer.
Yeah.
And the cop is like banging on her door violently, like, let me in. I need to ask you these questions. She's like, who are you? And he's like, and then he just starts calling her a bitch and like telling her to open up the door. And she's like, well, do you have a badge? He's like, yeah, I'll show it to you when you let me in. And then he just barges in. He's like, I don't have a badge.
Yeah, he's like, I don't have a badge. And this is after he tells another cop or another guy, like, oh, this guy who killed the children, I'm going to murder him. I'm not going to bring him into justice or anything. I'm just going to kill him, okay?
Oh, yeah, that was the other thing. He meets with another cop who I guess is like the chief now or whatever, and who is also there the night of the murder. He says, I'm going to kill him. He's like, you can't do that. He's like, hey, he killed 2 children. Then the guy's like, all right, well, just don't make a lot of noise and make it quick.
Yeah. Don't drop my name. I won't mention you. Very, very interesting. Yeah. Where does it go from there? Because I feel like there's like you get a little bit of, oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, he goes on he kind of starts stalking this woman.
Yeah.
That turned him down and follows. Well, the cop is like, hey, I'm going to tail you because he's probably going to tail you as well. Yeah. And that is the case. Like he actually breaks into the woman's apartment and she screams. Luckily the cop is there and he chases him off, and they kind of do like this big chase sequence, but the guy gets away. And yeah, that's the main thing, really.
Yeah. Do they ever explain how he finds the woman's house and where she lives again?
Well, kind of. There's because she had her name in the paper.
Okay.
And
yeah.
She had her name and face in the paper because she was getting some type of like chairwoman position or something. Like she was getting some type of title. and it had her name and face in there. So I'm assuming he just
Connected the dot.
Looked her up in the phone book or whatever. I don't know, but
yeah, because I thought that was quite a jump from like, because it kind of goes there, and then all of a sudden he's like back at her place, because that's what happens. Her and her husband end up having dinner together. They have a babysitter at home, and this is a scene that I actually thought was really well done. Is while she's eating dinner, she gets a phone call for her, and it's the guy's voice, and she freaks out and screams in the middle of like the restaurant because she hears the guy's voice again.
Oh yeah, that's, I guess, yeah, Carol Kane was great in this movie. Yeah. And I wish there was way more of her, because she's only in the very opening scene and then the last bit. So
yeah, the last bit. And I'm talking up the end of this movie, but now I'm like thinking about it and what was memorable of it. It really wasn't that good. I mean, like, I like the twist, right? I like the whole twist that he's back, and after the time skip, he's now haunting her again. And I really wish it was just that. I wish that was just the movie.
I don't know. I mean, I like the scene, but like the motivation behind it, I'm not really a fan of, though.
Yeah.
Because it feels very forced. Just like, oh, I'm going to go after this one random girl. And I'm like, did he have like an obsession with her? Why didn't he go after her earlier or anything? If that was the case, I don't know. It felt very tacked on. And like I said, too, the middle part just feels like a completely different movie.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I didn't think it was great motivation.
No. And I think it's all around like pretty weak. And I don't think, honestly, now that I think about it, this movie gets brought up, but not like an essential, like, this is must watch horror. And I think there's a reason for that, because only 20 minutes of this is really just like firing on all cylinder stuff.
Yeah, that's the only part that's really worth watching, really. I mean, you can kind of just shut it off afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. It kind of works as a short film. It's got a creepy, eerie ending. He's still out there kind of deal. Not, oh, here he is. Here's what he looks like. And let's feel bad for him really quickly for this child killer. And they don't even do it well,
What did you think of the serial killer, the guy playing Kurt Duncan?
So I do actually think he did a good enough job for what he had. He was always sweaty and gross, and like he played that very well. So I actually think he at least was a good performer.
Yeah. So the reason why he looked like that is he was allegedly he had AIDS during that time, and he was battling with that. So because because if you look at him from like earlier movies, I mean, he looks a lot better. He's got a lot of color in his face, and this one, I mean, he looks really sickly.
Gotcha.
And
that's sad.
And 6 months after this movie was made, he passed away.
Gotcha. So they're saying that like he was a very like early case before like the AIDS pandemic like really broke out.
Yeah, and I mean, AIDS was a thing before the 80s,
yes,
but
yeah, of course.
But it's not the official ruling, but that seems to be like the overwhelming evidence to be that's what it is. So that's why I say allegedly, because it's not like a surefire thing, but he was in a relationship with another man. So
gotcha. Yeah. And I mean, and now that I think about it, because that's the main characteristics I picked out of it, is that he looked sickly and sweaty. So it makes sense. And hey, it made for a good pick. So because he played the role well. Sad that he died, though.
Yeah, I think it was good, but I think I would have liked it better if it was like a different movie, maybe, because when you do a movie like a home invasion type of movie, or like a killer, like an unseen killer, it's how's the old saying go, less is more type of thing. So it's kind of like, killer is very mysterious, you don't know a whole lot about him. It makes the movie that much better. But this one, we've spent so much time with the killer. By the end of the movie, it's kind of like there's not a ton of mystery there. We kind of figure he's a crazy guy. We know he's up to no good.
Yeah. More like a Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer kind of movie. Like it's actually following just him would be a better deal.
Right. Well, that one's different too, because that one, Michael Rooker has like a performance of a lifetime.
That's true. That's very true.
but like I said, that's why it feels like very two different movies. It's not following a serial killer. It's kind of following a serial killer for like half of the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could see how the opening bit is very memorable. I can see why people love it. I mean, like I said, it's shot really great. The suspense is there. There's a lot of like one trick that they used was each time the phone rang, so each time for new call, they increased the volume of each ring.
Mm-hmm.
So that way it heightened that level of suspense to it. So I think like I always said it, if it was like a whole movie of a home invasion, I think we both would have liked it better. But as it is as a whole, watch the first 20 minutes, like I said, and I can't recommend much more than that.
No, that's exactly what I would say. Yeah. I really would say watch those first 20 minutes and you can turn it off and you would actually be completely fine. That's my recommendation for this movie.
But I do want to make a side note, because I did mention it in the last episode. What was the deal with that audio on that Amazon Prime?
I don't know. I just thought it was the movie because that's how I watched it. And I was going to comment. I didn't comment it on this time because I realized that it was just the streaming service. But I was like, dang, this audio is horrible. Like it is so bad. And I don't know why there's multiple varying audio like tracks out there.
Whoever did the mixing for this audio, this file or whatever that's on the streaming service, they need to get back on there and fix that, because is like the speaking volumes are so loud and muffled.
Yeah,
you can't even hear like what the actors are saying. It's just like like that type. And
yeah, it's like overblown. Like I don't know who thought this was like a good idea. They were like not mixing their audio with headphones on. They just had their crappy little computer speakers, and they're like, "Oh, I gotta turn this up." I don't know, but yeah, no, I totally agree that it was a mess. I'm glad to hear that it actually has good audio.
Yeah, I got 5 minutes into it and I'm like, oh, hell no. I'm not listening to this like the whole time. And I tried another service and luckily it was there.
Yeah, because I mean, audio is one of the most important parts of a movie. Like if you have bad audio, it totally takes you out of the experience. So I get it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, one funny line was when Carol Kane and her new husband were going out for dinner, and her husband says, "Honey, if we don't leave soon, I'm going to eat this staircase."
Wow, that is comic writing right there. You never said that before?
I mean, yeah, I've said that before.
I was going to say, that's just like common, like everybody said, I'm about to eat the staircase, I say it all the time.
I don't know why. It made me laugh.
No, it is a good line.
Yeah, that was it. But yeah. I think we are done now with that. So, Nathan, what are we going to be talking about next time?
All right. So next time we're going to be talking about The Lady in Red from 1979, directed by Louis Teague. And you can watch that over on Tubi. Sounds great. Can't wait. But in the meantime, if you've got any questions, suggestions for us, please email us over at driveindoublefeaturpodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at DIDFpod. Again, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/driveindoublefeaturepodcast. But until next time.
what I call.
I'm calling from inside the podcast.